Pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public hearing, we have none. Presentations. Adjustment to the agenda. I do have two. Down under old business, 11.1.4. We're gonna have an update from Max on the Hustis House situation. And we also, on number 13, was Bob, you have the number for the, we have to do a executive session for the Philbrook Fund, MRSA, you know that off the top of your head?
I'm sorry, what's the subject?
Philbrook Fund.
Philbrook.
Uh,
I have it.
I think it's a C.
4056C.
F, thank you.
So we'll have an additional topic for the Philbrook Fund. We get a motion to approve that adjustments.
I took that motion.
All in favor? Citizens' comments. Any comments from the citizens?
About anything or what, about what?
Anything you want to bring up?
Oh.
It's not on the.
That's not on the
not on the
agenda.
agenda.
It's on the agenda.
Okay. Select board comments, Bob?
None.
Nor I.
Thank John for changing our flag to our meeting.
I have none. Believe it or not. Town manager's gone.
I just have one, last week there was a accident on Wagner Bridge Road that involved a school bus and it was a pretty serious, requiring life flight to be landed up on the, right here in the town parking lot, and it just reminded me, I mean, I'm aware of it, but every day that our emergency services, police, fire, EMS, and that particular day, Public Works was part of traffic control. Actually, even our finance director was at the scene because she lived nearby. And it just, when you see what our men and women in our emergency services do on a daily basis, it was just amazing to me, and just how they operated. And it's the first time I ever saw a life flight land. And a special shout out to, we had two Friendship firefighters. Well, actually the Chief Benner and his son, Alex Benner, firefighter. I don't know if he is a captain or what he is down in Friendship, but they happened to be in town, and there were two simultaneous accidents. They actually cleared an accident up on Route 1 for us, and then they actually helped us on the call on Wagner Bridge Road. And I'm just so proud of our emergency services. They do a great job.
Oh, you have?
That's all I have. I can wish a happy birthday to Hannah, my 2-year-old granddaughter, whose birthday I just is her birthday.
Yeah, you know, happy birthday.
She's a Waldorf.
Consent calendar.
I move approval.
Motion approval. Got a motion? A second? Second? Any discussion? All in favor of approving the consent calendar? Aye. New business. First being the Transfer Station Management Committee appointment.
So back in March, I think it was 2018. Hoping I'm right.
April 2018.
April of 2018, we established a new way of managing, when we renewed our interlocal agreement with Cushing and Friendship for the transfer station, a new way of making decisions, and we set up a management board. Each year, technically, the select board, typically it's the select board chair through the ordinance that is the person who attends the management committee meetings. In the past, that has always been designated to Bob Butler at the end of the table here. And every year we vote to either send the chair, you guys vote to send the chair or to send a designee. And it can be any of you, if the chair does not want to go.
Now, does this management committee oversee the transfer station committee?
Yes.
Bob, is this something that you
I'm happy to do it.
do it again?
But I don't claim the privilege to do it. But no, I'm very happy to do it. I am chair of the transfer station committee, so I kind of act as a liaison between the management board and the transfer station committee. And hopefully the management board will begin to charge the transfer station committee again. I mean, it kind of fell apart with COVID and everything. We couldn't even meet. But hopefully we'll breathe some new life into that and establish a firmer mission.
That's one of the places where, at our next meeting, we're gonna go over the budget for 2025. Talk about some of the improvements that have been made up at the transfer station. Explain to them about the purchase of the 3 trailers and what that does for us and update them on that.
Motion to let Bob to be the chair of the management committee or
So moved.
member of the man?
Member,
Member.
Member.
Second.
Discussion? One thing I want to ask Bob is how often do they meet?
Should be 4 times a year, John.
And is that, and the transfer station committee meets every month?
We try to
Try
meet
it
monthly.
monthly.
Yeah.
So I'd like to actually attend some of these.
Oh.
These meetings are open to the public.
yes,
Oh, yeah,
As far as
absolutely.
The management committee.
Yeah, but-
To learn a little.
but only 2 of you can attend
To the committee.
to the management,
To the
the
management.
management committee.
Right.
Otherwise it would be.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
All in favor of Bob to continue with this position?
I guess I'll vote for myself.
Forgive me.
I'd like to learn a little bit more about it. 10.3, no parking, Shady Lane discussion.
So we received a request from, I'm gonna say 2 residents technically. Shady Ave, I always want to say Shady Lane, but I don't, but it's Shady Avenue. Shady
I've
Ave, I
I'm
always,
sorry, I always call it that.
I know, a lot of people do, it's what gets me confused, but, for no parking. And the reason is, that the Waldo's back open. There's a lot more parking out back, and right now how it exists is if you were to turn off of School Street onto Shady, parking is allowed on the right-hand side in front of the houses essentially. It was brought to my attention, by the residents that they're not even sure that an emergency vehicle could get down there. So what we did was, I had Public Works, they said they have had issues getting down there as recently as the spring with, the F-550 and a landscape trailer. I sent the fire chief down and, his comment was, it's a lot narrower than what I remember. And I also sent, Chief Booker in, down, and he said with the width now of their boxes, it would be a tight fit. So, and of course, John Lash, Chief of Police, they all agreed that, it shouldn't be parking on either side on Shady Ave. Because they feel that even if you had parking on one side, it's making that turn and then navigating. And as John Daigle pointed out, it's not just the emergency service vehicles, but he said they actually had to trim trees back to get some of the buses for the Waldo to be able to navigate, to make that turn back there. And also, you have your, your oil trucks and other vehicles. So it's their recommendation that there be no parking on either side of Shady Ave.
Any comments from the board on this?
Just an additional one, and that is, you'd have a hard time getting into the parking lot behind the Waldo if cars were filling up that street.
Yep.
I mean, that's another issue too. And if you had to have access because there's an emergency in the Waldo, and it's better to go on the back than the front, what are you gonna do?
Well, and we realize, I mean, I think everybody and the chief, Chief Lash said, our police chief said, parking's a premium. However, when you need to get in there, you're gonna need to get in there. So that came directly from the chiefs.
Just one question, do all of the residents on that street have off-street parking?
Well, we're the
Yes,
residents,
right.
and yes, we have driveways.
Everyone has?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the one question I was gonna have. I mean, I'm all for it. I now know where that street is. I've been down it a few times. Is the residents also have to agree that it's no parking. So if you got a big party going on at the house, and you got a bunch of family coming in, we
Oh,
don't want
absolutely.
your cars there
Yeah,
either.
absolutely. That's right. That's just a.
Yeah.
a given.
Yeah,
We've
make-
been, very concerned about it.
Yeah.
So we would always make some kind of permission for them to park on Main Street or somewhere else.
We have public parking right around the corner.
Yeah, right by the, so
Yeah.
before the
barber
shop.
Right before the garbage.
Motion on this?
I'd move that we prohibit parking on Shady Avenue on either side,
Yes.
henceforth, effective now.
As soon as the signs can
With
go
the-
up.
With signs.
Yeah.
With signage.
Very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
that
give
will
me-
require a change in our parking ordinance, so it won't take effect till the next meeting.
Right. Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, a second on that?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Right, make a motion. Yeah, pursuant to MRSA
Don't know what they.
405.
Old business first.
4056F, isn't that old business?
Oh,
Over?
No, that's 13.
Okay, all right,
Sorry.
sorry, I wrote it in the wrong spot.
Old business, ballot question, consumer fireworks.
So we gave it our
We
best
talked about it
shot.
last
We
week.
talked about it last week. We're trying to keep it simple. And I believe Pam sent out some language.
It was the old ordinance. That's what it
Mhm.
looks like.
It's the old ordinance that we're going to re-up. But the question is what will appear on the ballot, and that's where sometimes I want it to be easily understood for everybody, and although sometimes when you're sitting in a office with everybody and we come up with these questions, it makes perfect sense to us because we've read it 100 times and we think, oh yeah, that's right. But then you can make somebody else read it and they're like, no, I don't understand it. One of the issues why I'm trying to be so sensitive to this was when the fireworks were prohibited, I got a lot of people after the fact saying they felt that the question was confusing and they thought they were voting to preserve fireworks and they were actually voting to eliminate fireworks. So I think we have to make it very clear what you're allowing in this question.
I would say, this is example that you wrote, shall the town vote to amend the fireworks ordinance to allow consumer fireworks to be used in the town of Walbrook? Period. And follow. To follow the town of Walbrook's firework ordinance dated 4/10/2012. That's the old one.
And reinstate.
Reinstate.
And reinstate. the ordinance. Previously,
Adopted.
5th day of April, 2012. Anno
well,
Domini.
that was when it was adopted.
Yeah, so I mean, that's
Yeah.
when I can't remember. That's when the state first allowed it. Yeah. Any questions?
Well, just a comment. Chief Smelser worked really hard to put together an ordinance back in the day that was subsequently put aside by the voters. And at the same time, Ray Perkins worked really hard to get on the warrant an article that would cancel that ordinance. Yeah, I understand a lot of people in town are for fireworks. But I think you'll find a lot of people in town don't like them. And I refer to that letter, that very nice letter written by one of our citizens and distributed to us. I hope he makes that a letter to the editor. In which he pointed out that in a way fireworks are becoming obsolete. You don't need them anymore. And he brought some good arguments against them, citing the wars that we are undertaking at the moment where there are already lots of fireworks and so forth. So I hope this puts the issue to bed for a while, one way or the other. But I think it's important to give citizens an opportunity to weigh in, particularly if they feel, as Julie's pointed out, that it wasn't clear what we were voting for the last time around.
Well,
We need
I-
to make it really clear this time.
Just gonna say, last time, I think you guys were pushed into it. Because when that was presented to us, we could have made language changes. We could have done some things that would have been much clearer, but. Select board at the time listened to. Somebody who was not on the select board or an employee of the town about the process. So I think we presented to the public something that was not understandable.
Fair enough. Well, let's just make sure it's understandable.
That's what I was
We
like,
all know.
I just want to allow consumer fireworks to be used.
Mike, did you have something?
No, I read that letter too and responded.
I'll let the audience speak. If you should go to the mic. The podium.
You just have to come up to the podium and say your name.
Speak on this topic.
Don't be shy. You're amongst friends. It's okay.
Retired teacher, I'm not shy. Hi, my name is Cynthia Koner. I live on Shady Ave in Waldeboro. Do I have to stand here now and say, oh, okay.
That's how people can hear you at home.
Oh, okay. I just wondered, do I understand this correctly in that a citizen can purchase fireworks and then set them off on their own property?
Yes.
And then so your neighbor could just
Yeah, there's a town ordinance that we had before.
right, you're right, and I remember reading, oh, yes, and really, I was really happy that it got changed because our dogs would shake and cower and,
Well, downtown, they're not allowed.
In your area.
oh,
You're in the
see,
historic
that's,
district, they're not allowed.
oh,
not
I
signing.
see. Oh, see, now, I didn't realize that, okay. Well,
They're not allowed in the historic district.
unless the town puts them on,
Unless,
yes,
yes,
and that's,
That's it.
okay,
Yeah, that wouldn't be, that would be more of a commercial.
okay,
Fireworks and.
okay, I understand, all right, then,
And the old ordinance does require somebody to come get a permit.
okay, oh, that's good too, yes, okay, so, and question answered. Thank you.
I gotta say, I'm on the fence on this issue. I've owned dogs. I had a couple of German short hairs and one of them was absolutely
yeah.
terrified.
They shake. they
And
just-
if there was a thunderstorm, for example, and we weren't home, he would chew the wood. He was
Oh,
just a
that's
total
so
wreck.
nervous.
But I love seeing fireworks too. I went to the Waldeboro fireworks and I went to the Damascotta 4th of July fireworks. I love them, but I understand your concern and
Well, they have all kinds of new things happening with computers and all
The
kinds,
drones.
the drones and, I mean, that's in the future, but that's also a nice alternative maybe.
Probably too expensive for an individual, though,
Well, for the town.
Right.
for the
to
town,
put it
yeah.
on. Yeah, true. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I have a few questions, really. My name's Rebecca Cooney. Are there limits on like usually in many municipalities, fireworks start probably around June 25th and they run through July 12th, sometime around like that. You can hear fireworks all up and down the river at different times. So I'm wondering whether the board has considered a time limit, like between on particular days. And
It's between 5 and 10.
okay,
But they exclude Memorial Day and 4th of July and New Year's Eve when consumer fireworks may be used between 5 PM and 12:30 AM the following day.
okay, so there are limits on that. That's great. I'm wondering also, we're in a severe drought, although it's raining right now. Are there any provisions for drought?
So consumer fireworks may not be used when the fire danger class as designated by the Maine Forest Fire Service is a class 4 or 5 fire danger day.
Great. This is a little bit like clamming after 2 inches of rain.
It is a little bit like that. And they have to obtain a permit from the fire department before discharging.
And does the permit also, fireworks are so interesting. You go to the store and they have the little guys, but then they have the monsters. And is there a limit
There
on,
is a limit. You cannot have missile type rockets,
okay,
helicopters or aerial spinners, skyrockets or bottle rockets.
okay,
And they
Thank
give-
you.
And the ordinance, we'll have a hearing on this ordinance prior to the actual November election. It's just that we have to have the warrant done, so right now we're working on the language for the ballot, just to make sure it's all clear.
You answered all my questions.
Yeah, and these, like Julie was talking about with the pipes, those are all, that's state law. And you're not gonna be able to find those in the state of Maine for sale. You can go out of state and buy some of them things, but you can't shoot them off in Maine.
Typically, you can't cross the state line.
Right, yeah.
Lots of summer people pick
Right.
up their fireworks in New Hampshire.
Yeah. So are we good with that type of language that we talked about?
Should be clear.
I think it's clear, and I think it's clear.
21.2, food sovereignty verbiage.
Are you voting on it? Or just-
Okay, we have a vote.
Why don't we vote on
We'll vote
all?
all at the same time.
If
Okay,
you agree with all of them.
Okay,
if you don't agree with all
did you write it down how I read it?
Uh,
How I said it?
no.
I did.
Shall the town vote to amend the fireworks ordinance to allow consumer fireworks to be used in the town of Waldeboro? And follow the town of.
Reinstate.
And reinstate. The town of Waldeboro's firework ordinance dated 4/10/2012. Copy of this ordinance is on file at the office of the town clerk.
Should it also say something about with exception?
So that is in the actual ordinance itself, and that'll be attached.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, we would have to print the whole ordinance.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I guess let's vote on that.
Just a quick question, John. We're saying we're amending the fireworks ordinance with this article. Are we referring to the fireworks ordinance that was put into place? In effect banning fireworks?
Yes,
That's
the
one
current
we're-
ordinance
Got it.
banning fireworks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The existing one, I'm just making sure the existing one is next, basically.
We're amending it to now read like the previous ordinance.
I would say rescind the current ordinance.
So you want to say, shall the town vote
To rescind the current fireworks ordinance to allow consumer fireworks. Da, 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 da.
To rescind.
I guess.
Ban, how about the current ban on fireworks? That way people know that what they're voting. to.
Sure.
I love wordsmithing.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, do you want me to get up or?
Go ahead.
Okay, is there any room in the rewriting of that to make a note so that everybody knows we're speaking about just those few days, not?
No. That,
Every day. Oh.
that, every day they can still do it. The ordinance currently says they can do it every day on those days, extends the hours.
Okay, you can do it any day of the year.
Right.
Okay. That would be useful also to know.
Well, the
Okay,
problem is
Yeah.
that when we get, so the crafting of these questions, this is where we get into a lot of issues is. It would be great to include all of that,
it's just one, it's like,
but
I
the
don't know
problem
where it's
is
from.
that then what parts do we include and what parts do we leave
Right.
out? So that's why. The copy of the ordinance is on file and hopefully, I mean, if people were to look at the voter guide, it would be great. So that people could read ahead of time and know. I'm sure that given the sensitivity of this topic, it'll be all over.
Okay.
But I think we just have to keep it simple so that people know. I don't want people to think that they're voting for something and not understand what they're voting for. I think even rescinding is gonna cause.
Repeal?
I think Lisa, I think maybe you just,
Can I make a suggestion?
Go ahead.
Shall the town vote to rescind the current fireworks ordinance? And in order to allow consumer fireworks to be used in the town of Waldeboro once a permit is obtained pursuant to,
you lost me with pursuant.
okay,
We gotta keep it as simple.
According to,
well. Take me out of the mix.
How about, shall the town vote to allow consumer fireworks to be used in the town of Waldeboro? A copy of this ordinance is on file at the office of the town clerk. That's really,
That's understandable.
that's understandable.
How about a copy of the restrictions or the do's and don'ts or something like that, just to add?
Well, we're talking on a ballot here, so you can't have all this
You
information.
can't have,
on the ballot.
yeah,
Twice, the copies in the ballot.
Can we say it's also posted on the town website?
Nice.
I don't know whether that's.
it's not gonna matter, because once they get in the booth.
Yeah.
Although there was a lot of people coming up and asking for information that I said, I can't tell you anything, but it's on our website, and I'm sure they went back in the booth with their phone.
You got it now, Julie?
Yep.
Can you read that?
Read
what you
that-
have
read
after
that.
Shall
all
the town vote to allow consumer fireworks to be used in the town of Waldeboro? Question mark. A copy of this ordinance is on file at the office of the town clerk and posted on the town of Waldeboro's website.
A copy of the new ordinance,
A copy of this ordinance.
this ordinance.
Cause I don't even want to get into rescinding in a new ordinance. Let's
Okay.
just say, look at it like we're starting from fresh.
Okay, all right.
Because once you
Okay.
adopt this, the old one's gone, so we don't vote to rescind and amend, and we're just doing it all over again. I think you'll get a good feel. I think it'll be the highest turnout we've had in a long time, so.
Not because of this.
There were
No,
a few
but
other
I
things on
think
the
that we
ballot.
have an excellent opportunity to get the actual, I think. Nobody can say, another complaint I got with that was, why didn't you wait
Till November.
till November?
Yeah.
Why would you do it in? When there's less turnout, so anyway, there we go.
Let's put that one to bed.
Okay,
Motion to approve that verbiage on that one.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Can
Any
I
more
just ask
discussion?
one more question?
Good, good.
When are we hoping to have a meeting about the ordinance itself?
September 10th.
Okay,
Public hearing.
yep, the
Public
public hearing will be
hearing.
September 10th.
so that would be the opportunity
To speak.
to
Yeah.
change language a little bit.
No.
Can't change on the ballot.
Cause the ballot's already, that's
Well,
referenced.
no,
Yeah.
she meant language in the
Oh.
ordinance.
In the ordinance
In the
itself,
ordinance,
so that
yes.
if there
Yes,
were,
sorry.
if the board was given feedback that we wanted to change the dates or the
Right,
time parameters or any of that, September tenth is the hearing for that. It's the planned hearing.
yeah, we can change the ordinance
Right, prior to November.
prior to November, but we can't change the language.
Right, but it's referencing a document that
That can
is
be changed.
a working document at this point and can be modified.
The problem is we have to have the wording to the printer to be able to be sure that we have ballots. Because there's a lot of ballots coming in.
Any other discussion? All in favor of that? Now we'll move on to the proposed food sovereignty question. Colonel, we had a gentleman in here,
Mr. Carmichael.
Mr. Carmichael, a few months ago, talking
Mhm.
about the food sovereignty, and they've been pretty active in getting folks informed about what the food sovereignty government is all about.
They're a very popular table at the election outside after. And I think Pam crafted this question.
That's a good one.
She read, shall the town vote to adopt an ordinance entitled Local Food and Community Self-Governance Ordinance to enable the right to produce, process, sell, purchase, and consume local foods, thus promoting self-reliance and preservation of family farms and local food traditions. A copy of this ordinance is on file at the office of the town clerk.
I move approval. I think it's nicely.
I second.
Any discussion on it? All in favor? Good job, Pam.
Thanks.
I can't take credit for the last one.
This one's tough. And I'll tell you why it's tough. I think part of the issue that started this was Mark, and Mark's here, so if I'm wrong, Mark, just tell me. Mark tried to take all the different places that regulation of recreation vehicles and non-permanent structures were in all our ordinances and state law and put them in one spot. People got the impression then that we were doing something differently than what we've ever done before. So that's why I tried, and again, wordsmithing is fun. Because I don't want people to think it's a new ordinance. It's just putting it in all in one spot. So. Complicated.
Just so the public to know, what we're talking about is the recreation vehicle and other permanent structure ordinance. Now, Mark, if I could, a lot of this information is in the current local land use ordinance, correct?
A fair amount of it is, some of it is.
Various places, and I went through that tonight a few times, trying to.
Exactly. It's kind of all over the place, as far as where it is, and it's the same thing when you look up. Some of the information is in the state building codes, IRC, some of it is in state, statutes. So we've tried to pull a lot of that information into one document to make it easier for people to understand what it is and why, why we go through this, so.
But the limits and duration of use are based on our current existing ordinance.
That is quote unquote right from our land use ordinance, so.
Questions?
Do we need to amend the current land use ordinance to reflect that we've pulled stuff out of it in order to put it into this?
It would be in two different places, but it would say basically the same exact thing.
They're not going to contradict.
They're not conflicting with one another because I tried to take whatever was in the land use ordinance and mimic the words. That's why I didn't change it to 90 days. I kept it at the 3-month language that's in there, so.
Do we want to put it, sorry, I'm just thinking out loud, we want to put in language into this proposed ordinance. That's, or maybe it's already in there. Conflict of,
I can't remember if it, I believe there was,
yeah,
hopefully I didn't remove it.
no, the severability clause doesn't cover what I'm asking about.
It does not,
No, because it has more to do with declaring part of what you're proposing.
right, in keeping the remaining.
And what I'm suggesting is if there's a conflict between this ordinance and any part of an existing ordinance, this one prevails.
We can do that. I mean, I
I don't
Yeah, you
know
can
if
do that.
Yep.
That eliminates any confusion.
I have some reservations. I went through it with a fine tooth comb today, and I apologize for not doing it sooner. I probably should have done it the last time you brought it up. And I had a number of questions about it. But if this is already in state code, building code, environmental codes, things like that, I have no problem with, centralizing these in a single document. I have no problem with that at all. But it sets up conflicts as the laws change. Are we going to have to, every time state changes the laws about septic systems or potable water connections, backflow preventers, whatever. Does that mean we're going to have to revise the ordinance every time that happens?
we shouldn't have to. I purposely tried to avoid specifics. And I would refer, as you read the document, you'll notice that I refer to whatever the state subsurface wastewater rules are.
Yeah.
That's what they have to follow. So as the wastewater rules adapt and we get a new set of rules, it will
Well, that
still
was one of
apply.
the other things that I.
Right, same
If
thing,
this was gonna be
NFPA
like-
1192, as that rule changes, then we won't have to do anything because all I'm doing is quoting NFPA 1192. So,
Understood, but if it was a guide for property owners
Mhm.
to follow, listing those sections would make it a lot easier to follow the code. So I have no problem with what you're doing,
Mhm.
but making it into an ordinance that is gonna require, it can't be specific enough to actually help them, but if you make it general, I'd rather err on the side of, here's what the current rules are, follow, and then if you want to make an ordinance, you are responsible for ensuring that these codes are met and consequences are assessed. But I look at it more as a guide than as a full ordinance. It would be more appropriate that way.
I understand what you're saying and I get it. I had more explanations in this document. I don't know if you got the first copy of it, but it was quite a bit. Quite a bit more. The problem with it is that I wanted it simple so that people could read it, understand where they can find the information on that. Most people don't have the luxury of knowing what code goes to what. This document gives them something to go by where they can sit there and go, okay, so my camper has to conform to NFPA 1192 for these things.
And I agree with that,
Right.
but there
And
were
it
some others
gives
that were
them,
very, very general. in
Right.
there.
some of them, it gives them the location of where to find that information. And I can always help people out. But I wanted a document that basically would take that information, put it into an ordinance so people know that this has to be followed. There seems to be a lot of misunderstandings with people thinking that campers and barns and, well, we can just live anywhere. And there are regulations that go along with that. And change of use, if you're changing a barn into a living quarters, well, it's no longer a barn. It's actually a dwelling unit. So that is my intent with this, to make it a little bit clearer for the average Joe out there to be able to look at a document and know where the information is and what, some of the restrictions are. So, and that's what I was hoping to bring across.
So I'm a little late to the party here, reading this language. We have some existing park models in town. What happens to those folks who are living in park models?
They should be looking into regular, we've had this issue come up before, actually before I took over in code enforcement. But a park model is a camper. It is a travel trailer. There is, the definitions of it are the same.
So
So
the
park,
difference between a tiny home and a camper is the, how it looks, what the materials are. So we have a tiny home that's built of wood on wheels and a chassis, and we have a camper that's built on a chassis, but it's
Right.
metal.
Yep.
So we're just talking about how it looks versus its
no, it's how it's
functionality.
built. And it's also built to standards that the state has set and they have adopted. Same way as, what I refer to as, it used to be everyone called them single wides. They're now deemed HUD homes. That's how they want to be, or manufactured homes. So the same thing applies to those. There are certain federal guidelines that go into, HUD homes that have to be followed. And those are recognized by the state and the state's housing board. And those guidelines are set. And each one of those single wides comes with a certificate from the state that basically deems that it's been built to those standards. Same thing happens with tiny homes. They're built to a certain standard and they're recognized by the state as a dwelling unit versus campers are not recognized as a dwelling unit. That's probably the easiest way I can explain it.
Bob? I think you've done a great job putting this together. I mean, what you've done is really difficult. And it doesn't change anything. If we didn't have this, we'd all be subject to the same laws and regulations we're subject to now. We're not doing anything new here. What Mark has done is pull it together so that we see what we need to do and where we need to go. And reference is pretty clear to you and the health officer. If there are questions, it's in there. And people who read it will know where to go to get the answers. So I think you've done a great job.
These are tough issues. Yeah, and I'll ask a really tough question, and I apologize for having to do it.
No.
How many people are gonna be put out of trailers? Or units?
I like
or
to look
whatever?
at it, I like to look at it this way. Everybody is allowed, as long as they have proper sanitation, to be in a camper for 3 months. There is a person who just put in a permit for a subsurface system so that they could have their relatives over for the summer, take turns staying in a fifth wheel. That's perfectly allowable. What we're trying to do is give everyone the opportunity to have a decent place to live with proper sanitation and, everything that goes along with it, health. If you think of a camper, campers are actually listed, and I can supply you with a document. If you look up the definition of homeless by the state, camper is listed as that. So you were considered homeless if you were currently living in a camper. So the state already recognizes that they're not dwelling units, they're not meant to be lived in. We understand that there is this problem. I don't go out and look for campers every time I'm out there. I don't do it. But if I get a complaint, like I did receive a complaint from a social worker about, living conditions, I have to go and do my job and I have to make amends to that. And, some people, they don't like that, but it's for their own good. That's why we have a lot of the building
Well,
codes that we
again,
have.
we had the issue of timing, this is not gonna be voted on until November and it'll
Mhm.
take effect in whenever, shortly after that, in the middle of winter. I mean, I got a real problem with that.
It still is not going to change the fact of what I have to do. So if this document does not go through, Mike, I'm still gonna do the same thing, regardless if this document goes through or not. And there's, we can talk about homeless situation and how to housing. We've offered up help to people as they come in. That's what, the town manager and myself have met with people before, trying to get them help.
So part of the issue becomes when a neighbor comes in and says, we have a camper next to us and they're dumping feces.
I know that that
On-
situation did exist.
Does
And it exists more than once,
More than one. Yeah.
more than
That's a
once.
wastewater problem, not the dwelling part. Yes, it's fine.
But the problem is that needs to be addressed. Once a complaint like that comes in, you get into it's multi-layered, and then you have our CEO going out, or you have our health officer going out. Then you're getting into situations where other entities might have to be called in. It's nobody here in this building wants to remove anybody from their house, what they consider their house. But there are times where once we are made aware that the liability is huge. So some of these campers have had wood stoves in them when we do the inspection. Now, we've had in the last, how many years? 4 years? 3 or 4 camper fires that potentially could have been life altering or life ending. So once we know, he has an obligation to, as any of the officers of the town have an obligation to act. So if it is, even if it's in the middle of the winter, there's steps we have to take. There's no way around it. But like Mark said, he doesn't go out and look every time he goes out to find it, but that's our large problem is people, and I think people start out meaning when I have property, I'm gonna let you stay here. But what they don't realize is there's no septic. Some of these places have no septic, some of them have no running water. And not everybody is that altruistic of, oh, you can just stay here. Some people are paying a lot of money to stay places with absolutely no electric, no water, no sewer. So I think, I totally get what you're saying and I understand completely, but I also see it from the perspective of somebody who has to enforce it and take the complaints. There's a balance here and finding that balance, I think we've done quite well. And we do, every time this has happened, that we've had to address this, we have offered assistance to people to find permanent housing. Now, some people take that and they're very thankful. And there are people though who do not want to hear it for whatever reason. And I will go back and say this repeatedly. Our biggest problem we have right now, if you were to look at the stories that we see here, this isn't a lot of individuals that are forced to live in campers have had subsidized housing in the past. They have had subsidized housing. For whatever reason, they lost that subsidized housing. The state has to come up with a way. Now, it could be because they didn't pay their rent. It could be because of a behavior that was against the rules of that subsidized housing. The state has to come up with something, because it's not just happening in Waldeboro, a mechanism to allow those individuals who have gotten behind and never got caught up or had a behavior issue to be able to get back into subsidized housing. Because you may come to us and say, hey, we need help finding subsidized housing, or we need help finding a rental. If you can't get a reference, we can't even if we know of a rental, and sometimes we do, sometimes we know, okay, somebody will call here and say, hey, if you know somebody needs something, let us know, but we're going to want references and we're going to want some assurances. You can't get that because they've not been renting. you know, and they don't have that record, or, so the state has to take some ownership in this. Because they can build all the subsidized housing they want, but by their own rules, the people that need the most help aren't gonna qualify for that housing. So that's, I'm off my soapbox now, but I just, you know, they make a big show of creating all of this subsidized housing. But the people that are living in campers are the ones that need the most help, and they're the ones that aren't even gonna qualify for that. So that's just another perspective, but we do try. But like I said, I hear what you're saying, but once we know, there's just certain things we have to do. Like if a caseworker calls and they're concerned, we have no choice but to go and look.
I guess in a nutshell, this is basically an ordinance that you've taken from other ordinances and rules and regulations and put it into one.
And I've tried to simplify it as much as possible to get rid of the hefty languages and make it easier to read, but I've also tried to copy and paste wherever possible so that the language is exactly the way it comes. There was one, I think Bob picked up on something that I had written here that was kind of oddball to me too, where referred to, I've changed it to 8 feet, and there was another one. It said 8 body feet, and that's exactly how it's written in the state document. Exactly. I'm like, I don't know where it came from and why, but anyway, so.
And we're not, one of our neighboring towns dealing with this right now themselves. They've asked me about it.
We are not the only ones.
No,
We are not. We are not.
But if I could just reemphasize, this isn't gonna change a thing. Life goes on whether we do this or not, but life will be a lot easier with this language in front of us than the hodgepodge we currently have.
There has to be something different about it if we currently have folks who were permitted to put
They're not.
park models on,
They're not.
They're not.
and
It's
then,
not gonna change that in any way, shape, or form.
There wasn't a time when you could live in, there's never been a time in,
well, I have a recollection of a big to-do about putting the park model in down on North Noble Road.
Yeah, that one's
it-
gone.
it's
And they
gone.
had to put a bigger one in, because the bigger one was allowed and a smaller one wasn't allowed,
But-
but
Yeah, the
But-
one that was replaced was actually legit mobile home.
That was
I know exactly
true,
which one.
that was a manufactured
That was a
home,
manufacturer, yeah. That one caught fire. That's.
and that was the third one.
yeah, no, I understand. I just, you know, if we are allowed to put a tiny home on a property and as we drive by it, it looks good because it's a tiny home, but it's still not hooked to septic, we still have a
Oh, no.
problem.
it
No,
has
no,
to be-
no,
I understand, we still have a problem, but why is that acceptable, but if your camper is hooked to a septic, that's not acceptable.
That would be a question for the state.
Yeah.
Cause that's a
a
state.
camper
rule,
is
not a-
acceptable for 3 months. It's just not a permanent residence.
But homelessness is homelessness, and we can say, well, campers not being homeless, but boy, if that's the only place I had to lay my head in January, I would feel like that was adequate.
There are some cases out there where that's the case. There are some cases out there that I know that people are using it because it's a cheaper alternative for them than it would be
The
going
same
to
reason
afford
somebody
rent.
Builds a tiny house instead of building a 2,500 square foot house,
Mhm.
it's the same reason.
But
it's
again,
affordability.
but the state doesn't.
Right.
That would be something that the state would have to address. Because why do you allow tiny homes but not campers?
Motion on this.
Well, we're just making the motion on the language
On the warrant, right?
Just the language
Plan
on
for
the
the
warrant.
warrant.
Yeah.
Which reads, shall the town vote to condense existing ordinances and state law into the ordinance regulating the use of recreational vehicles and other non-permanent structures to protect the health, safety, and welfare of all residents. Copy of proposed ordinance is on file at the office of the town clerk.
I move we put it on the warrant.
Second, I'll second it. Like second, right?
You can say.
Any more discussion? Any more discussion? All in favor? Opposed? We need to have.
You need happen.
Good. You know, saying, but
I did some,
So to me.
made some marginal
we don't-
notes. If
it
you wanna
doesn't
take
go
them.
on.
it doesn't go on the order, it doesn't go.
Doesn't go
It
on.
doesn't go on. So with that tie vote, it's gonna be, not gonna go on.
But just so everybody's clear, it doesn't change
Way we're doing this.
the way we're doing it. It doesn't change. Would people feel better if this was a handout to the public versus?
Much better. Enormously better. Instead of an ordinance, if it was a handout, I would strongly support that.
But I truly ask you, what is the difference, Mark? What is the difference between me handing them this, which is state law, local law, and, you know, them?
You know, it can be a handout and it can say the town of Waldeboro code enforcement officer has authority to inspect these premises and issue fines if any of these codes are not met. That's all you have to say. It's still true. It's still true.
Right, I'm just trying to create a document to make it easier for people, because they come into the office.
I
and they don't
support that. I
understand
support that entirely. But turning it into a town ordinance, I just, it's duplicative and it's gonna create a firestorm. A lot of people are not gonna be happy with this. I'm not happy with it.
Fair enough.
But you have to remember, you may not be happy with it. But there's a lot of things that are in ordinances that a lot of people aren't happy with. And I mean this sincerely. There's a ton of things. And when you sit up here, there's times you have to vote on things that you're not happy about. I don't think there's any, I don't think anybody gets any joy out of having to handle homelessness and people living in campers. But I don't want anybody leaving this meeting thinking that there's a good or bad vote in this. Because I think we all are very sensitive to the issue and we all try really hard to help people out of a situation they're in. But we have to be across the board and try to do the best for everyone. And when those complaints come in, and some of these situations are serious, and some of this involves kids. And, you know, we can't turn a blind eye just because, well, we feel mean or we don't want people out of this situation in the winter. It's not an easy job and somebody's expected to do it. And from the other side, I got to tell you, sometimes, and I'm sure Mark feels this, is, you know, we're painted as the bad people who do this. But I also want to remind everybody sitting here tonight and watching and whatever is in the newspaper, somebody dies in one of these and we knew about it and we didn't do about it, we all have to live with those consequences. And we've been close a couple of times. And so I just want to caution everybody, it's easy to say, I don't want to do this. But it's darn hard when you're standing there and you have to make those decisions. And if you decide not to, and something happens, you live with that for the rest of your life. So I give you a lot of credit for that because that's a decision you make on a almost daily basis. And I do appreciate that.
I appreciate it too, and I understand how hard it is. But again, when it's gonna take effect is right in the middle of winter and
I'll make one more comment and we'll. Look, I appreciate it. I'll put it to bed. And it's all about safety. It's not only the people that are in those campers, yurts, tents, wherever they're living, think it's their house. But we also have people that drive by, they see a house on fire, camper on fire, what are they gonna do? They're gonna stop and they're gonna try, most people will go try to render assistance. We'll get our fire department out there. I've been in these fires. It's not fun crawling around in a place that's got these little propane cylinder bottles all over the place to give heat. And then you see one blow up in front of you. It's not fun. It's all about the safety of our residents and making sure that our people stay safe. And again, thank you, Mark, for putting the effort on this.
Can I just make one comment? Sorry, John.
Go ahead.
I hope you come back. Let's look at this. for-
Talking about tomorrow.
Let's look at this.
I'm not giving up.
Let's look at this for June. Yeah. People will have more time to think about it.
Okay, 11.1.4. Officers house update from Matt.
Officer's house up, it's always an office. So, we have had the site tested with the grant that came from the Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission. It found a very few sites. They had to keep testing quite a bit actually, and just because of the disbelief. And we did have New Meadows just come out yesterday, actually. I applaud Mike for his quick turnaround for getting us those numbers. He gave me that as of this afternoon. It came out to 19,200, 600. And most of that is the siding. That took up, that's obviously like 14,000, almost $15,000. Everything else are just some minor things, mostly yeah, it's just stuff on the floor. Some was found in the attic. That's it. It's a lot lower than I thought it was gonna be. A lot of disbelief, even when I gave Mike the Mike from New Meadows abatement, not that big, yeah. He wanted to do the site visit just because, again, he couldn't believe that it was that low, but that's the number we got, so now I just need to get the grant for it. And then we can clean it up.
Good job.
Any questions or? Yeah,
Well, that was demolition. Exclusive of the,
no, I mean, both of them have said that the difference between demolition and rehabilitation is nothing at this point. It's all stuff that's being removed. I think the boiler is the only other problem, but all that stuff would have to be removed for rehabilitation anyway, so the price isn't really different.
Plan is to remove that, but leave it on site, yes.
The building?
No. The things that are asbestos can remain on site, no?
No,
No, they'll be removed. That's what those 20,000 is. So we'd have to do the RFP to get the people and then we can remove it, but any other questions? I like it when I go quick.
Then right at the next meeting.
I know Mark has a, do you have for the next meeting, a code enforcement issue coming up?
Yeah, I think about that.
We'll have a Maine municipal vote. We're gonna have to vote for officers for Maine municipal. Another actual,
Can we just do that one?
that they have several different committees we have to vote for.
That'll be for the executive committee.
Executive.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
I'm sure we'll fill it.
Anyone think of anything else you want to discuss next week?
Fun and exciting.
All right, now Becky. Adjourn, go to executive session.
Right, pursuant to MRSA 4056A. Personnel. And, I have to get my glasses, sorry, MRSA 4056F.
And that's for the
Philbrook
Philbrook
Fund.
Fund. We have one application. And we will return and take action on that application.
So the meeting's adjourned for the executive session, and then we'll return after the executive session.
You get a second on that?
Nope, we need to vote.
No.
Second, second, all in favor?
Just back